Pour a cup of eggnog, grab some Christmas cookies, put a fire on, light some candles, turn the Christmas tree lights on, put some Christmas music on, and put your feet up because we've got a special edition of Habs Hockey Report coming right at you. Ho, 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 hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Habs Hockey Report right here on the All Habs Hockey Magazine YouTube channel, part of Rocket Sports Media, of course. You can find us at allhabs.net on the web, and of course, as you see here in the corner, we're also part of the Hockey Podcast Network, THPN, and sponsored by DraftKings. So thanks so much to them, and thank you for being here. Welcome. I'm your host of the show each and every week. My name is Amy Johnson, and boy, am I glad that you're here with us today because it's like the most exciting week of the year. We are leading right up into Christmas. The big man let me borrow his hat this week. While he's off busy getting packages ready. Merry Christmas to all of you, and hoping that you're having a wonderful holiday week. Happy Hanukkah to those of our viewers who celebrate Hanukkah, hoping that your celebrations are going wonderfully as well. And just happy holidays to whoever is watching, whatever holiday you are celebrating this time of year. We join you in your celebrations, and we wish you just a really happy holiday season here as we wind down 2022. A very exciting week. We've got some hockey stuff to talk about today, and we're going to have a little bit of fun today as well, getting the holiday spirit, that's for sure. And the first thing I'd like to remind you to do, of course, is to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Hit that share button as well, and share our content on your favorite social media platform. And one thing to keep in mind and start thinking about is this week's feedback forum question. With next week wrapping up the calendar year, what do you think was the most successful thing the Montreal Canadiens did in 2022? We're looking back over 2022 next week. What do you believe was the biggest success story that the Montreal Canadiens had in 2022? I can't wait to hear your answers on that one. Boy, we've as we mentioned this at the beginning of the month that there was going to be two stretches this month of late night hockey, and we're into the second round of it. Is there like some unwritten rule that says when there are late night games for those of us on the East Coast that they are required to go into at least overtime, if not a shootout, just to make you have to stay up later? I think that's worked into the rules somewhere, some footnote that none of us have seen with our own eyes yet, because it seems inevitably to always happen. The Canadiens heading to overtime twice this week. Arizona, Colorado came out with a win in Arizona, not so much in Colorado. Of course, that win in Arizona snapped a 3-game losing skid because when the Canadiens invited the Tampa Bay Lightning into the Bell Center last Saturday night for their last home game before this lengthy road trip, they, of course, lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning there as well. So did manage to get a win in Arizona. I think that game was a little tighter than anyone expected it to be out there at Mullet Arena, but entertaining nonetheless, and they did get the win in the OT. They managed to get 1 point in Colorado, and just not able to finish it out. Just couple of bits of roster movement. Rem Pitlick was getting close to his 10-game or 30-day stint before he became waiver eligible again. So he was reassigned to the Laval Rocket last week before the Canadiens headed out for their road trip. And so who was the forward who was recalled to take his place? And we talked about this on the Press Zone podcast this week as well. You can find that at thepresszone.fm. And I should say, I'm not surprised that Anthony Richard was the recall. Slightly disappointed, would have preferred to have seen a prospect since this is a season of development and rebuilding. I think it would be a better idea to call up your top forward prospect and take a look at him at this stage of the season in mid-December, and that would have been Jesse Ylönen. But that's not what they did. Anthony Richard, of course, at the top of the leaderboards around the AHL for most of the season as far as scoring goals, that type of thing. So he made his Canadiens debut on Monday night in Arizona. That was his third ever career NHL game. And his second game with the Canadiens took place in Colorado, and he's the one who got the Habs on the board, scoring his very first NHL goal. So congratulations to him for that. With the good comes the bad. He also happened to be sitting in the penalty box then when Arturi Lehkonen lit the lamp a little while later. So hockey giveth and hockey taketh away. So a bit of a kind of both ends of the spectrum for Anthony Richard there on Thursday night. The Canadiens will continue their road trip. They'll finish out the pre-Christmas part of the road trip in Dallas on Friday night. A Friday night game for the Habs? Really? Friday? They go back out on the road next week to play in Tampa Bay next Wednesday and then against the Florida Panthers. So, I mean, not a terrible way to have to spend the few days before New Year's is in South Florida. Not terrible at all. Of course, it also gives us some time to get Boxing Day underway. What could possibly be happening on Boxing Day? Oh, the World Juniors. Everyone's getting geared up. The pre-tournament action is already underway as the World Juniors gears up. IIHF expecting some pretty big matchups, even on Boxing Day. Who can we expect to see on the 26th? Well, Canada will take on Czechia. That is kind of the marquee game, the late night, the last game of the day. Just prior to that, at the kind of early primetime slot, is the USA versus Latvia. Earlier in the afternoon, Sweden versus Austria, and I believe things kick off with Finland versus Switzerland. So not some terrible matchups. We'll get to see all of the Habs prospects in action. Lane Hudson will be there for Team USA. Of course, Joshua Waugh will be in action for Canada. Vincenz Rohrer, Kapanen. There's a lot of Habs prospects playing in the World Juniors, and we're going to talk about that a lot more on next week's show. As we, next week we're going to kind of wrap up 2022 a little bit, wrap up this point of the season, and we're going to talk about World Juniors a bit next week as well. So it should be very fun. Looking forward to that for sure. Going to keep things pretty quick and simple for the Rocket Booster today. They just wrapped up a 4-game road trip. We had talked about last week how they played in Utica to kick off the road trip on Wednesday night, getting a win, getting their first back-to-back wins of the season after winning at home against Belleville the Saturday prior for their teddy bear toss. Then they went on and they did win on the road in Utica. So first back-to-back wins of the season, which was a pretty good accomplishment for them. However, they weren't able to sustain that. They went on and played 2 games in Cleveland over the weekend. A noon game on Saturday. That's just as much not fun as a late night game is a noon game on a Saturday. Dropped that one. Didn't win that one on Saturday. But then when they played Cleveland again on Sunday afternoon, they were able to get a win there. That was Cleveland's teddy bear toss day, but Laval came up with the win that day, notching their 10th win of the season. Laval has played 29 games, and that was just their 10th win of the season. So it's really been a struggle for Laval. They then wrapped up the road trip in Syracuse on Wednesday night. And Syracuse pretty much dominated the game. It looked like Syracuse was going to shut out Kevin Poulin and the Laval Rocket, but with 43 seconds left in the game, Raphael Harvey-Pinard cleaned up a rebound in the slot, got the Laval Rocket on the board with one goal. Pulled them within one. They had 43 seconds to try to tie the game, but really too late for any of that. Syracuse did come up with that win. So Laval continues to struggle. They now come home. They'll play a game at home on Friday night before Christmas, and then they'll play a game again next Wednesday night at home as well. I invite you to listen to the Press Zone podcast, where we really break down everything happening with the prospects in Laval and what's going on with the Rocket. One other note I should mention quickly, the AHL All-Star Game this year will be hosted by the Laval Rocket. That takes place in the beginning of February. And the honorary captains for the Eastern Conference and Western Conference All-Star teams were announced this week. And since Laval is the home hosting team, of course, it's kind of a nod to the Canadiens. So Yvan Lambert and Mike Keane were announced as the honorary captains for the Eastern and Western Conference for the AHL All-Star Game. That's pretty nice to see. And we're going to talk a little more in depth about the AHL All-Star Game as we get closer to that. So we'll be sure to get into that in just a few weeks. Well, in the Habs Fan Hub this week, of course, we've got answers to last week's feedback forum question. But before we get to that, allow me to remind you, this week's feedback forum question, next week, of course, we'll be reflecting on 2022. And I want to know, what do you believe is the biggest success story that the Habs had this past calendar year? In 2022, what was the Habs' best success, in your opinion? Leave those answers in the comment section down below. We'll be sure to read them next week. Last week, I asked you, what is your Christmas wish for the Habs? And since it's obviously tis the season for Christmas wishes, let's read a couple of those. First off, not necessarily a Christmas wish, but we do have Steve saying, thanks for the content. As an expat living in the Deep South, always on the lookout for some good Habs content. Keep it up. Thanks. Steve, you're very welcome. We're glad you found us, and we're happy to have you watching the channel and subscribed as well. But we do have Center Heiss saying, in the order of necessity, bye-bye Drouin, Hoffman, and Edmondson for his value. Weidman, just clear the overload on defense. Then Monahan and possibly Anderson for his value. Send Pizzetta to the AHL, and we can add a couple of other forward vets after that to be traded if anyone will make an offer. That's quite a list. I'm sure Santa Claus will be hard at work trying to offload all of that, all of those assets, and see if the Habs can really start to get a better and more clear picture of what they have to work with going forward once they get some of the extras off of the roster. So thank you for your answer there. My Christmas wish for the Habs really is just to follow through with your established goals. Rick Stevens and Michael Spinella this past week on the Canadiens Connection podcast. You can find that at canadiensconnection.fm. They went into depth about whether or not coaches, management, Kent Hughes, Jeff Gorton, and fans can continue to practice patience when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens rebuild. It really is important. And that's really my Christmas wish for the Habs, is that they just follow through with their established goals. The established goals were that this was year one of a rebuild. Everything would be focused on development, and that's what I want to see, and not too caught up on the wins that they're able to get. The wins are great if and when they come, but I don't want that to become a focus like a goal now has to be to make the playoffs, because A, I don't think it's going to happen, and B, that's not helping necessarily your development to have that become a bigger priority. So I'd like the Habs to make sure that they just stay focused on development, both in the NHL and the AHL, please. That's my Christmas wish. Really, this week, it's all about family, friends, loved ones, creating great memories, enjoying the holiday season, whichever holiday it is that you celebrate. Maybe you celebrate more than one. I know plenty of people who do that as well. For me, it's Merry Christmas at my household, and I want to send a big Merry Christmas wish to all of you. It's my favorite time of year. Gotta get out a Christmas movie. My favorite one will be, of course, there's many of them, but my favorite one probably White Christmas with Bing Crosby. Have to break out the Charlie Brown Christmas special to watch a bit of that. Listen to some Vince Guaraldi. Have to make some. I've already started the Christmas cookie baking. Do enjoy indulging in the Christmas cookies at Christmas time, have to say, and singing some Christmas carols. I love the classics. I'm not so much a modern Christmas song person. I kind of like the jazzy Christmas stuff, Michael Bublé, Harry Connick, Diana Krall, that kind of thing. I like the classics. And as far as fun ones, I'd have to say my favorite song, and I just happened to hear it this morning, was "I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas." By Gayla Peavy. For whatever reason, that song just makes me laugh, and I really enjoy it. And I hope that this week and this weekend is filled with all of those moments that make you feel like a kid again. And I just say thanks so much for being along with us on this journey here at Habs Hockey Report. Thank you for being a viewer. Thank you for being a subscriber. And from all of us here at Rocket Sports Media, we're wishing you a very, very happy holiday season and a very, very Merry Christmas. If you missed last week's show, be sure to check that out right here. Enjoy your Christmas, everyone, and I'll see you back here again next week at All Habs.